Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Each week, our hosts will be interviewing local, regional, and national business leaders to give you an inside peek into how they lead their business to success in the ever-competitive business climate.
Welcome to another episode of Inside the Firm. This is our Monday morning edition. I am Alex Gore. I'm here with another Alex, two Alexes. It's going to be awesome. Alex Raymond is the founder of Conscious Entrepreneurs, the only event that is 100% dedicated to the well-being of entrepreneurs. Over the years, Alex has helped countless entrepreneurs navigate the stress of growing their companies without sacrificing their health, well-being, or relationships. Welcome Inside the Firm, Alex.
Awesome. Hey, great to see you. Thanks so much for having me today.
Yeah. So you work out of Boulder. You live out of Boulder too?
I live in Boulder. Yeah, correct.
So we're in Longmont. We're a little suburb of Boulder, a little sleeper community of Boulder. One thing, when I was looking you up and seeing all that is there was a statement on there and you said, I realized I was getting in the way of my success. My old habits and programs were unconsciously running in the background, and we were limiting the personal growth and the impact on my company was having by basically these old habits.
Yeah.
What were some of the, what was one of the epiphanies where it hit you like, oh, I'm being stupid or habitual, or this way of thinking is stopping me?
Well, I'll tell you some. I'll give you a little story by way of background, and I think this will bring the point to life. I've been a software entrepreneur for a while, and I've started a number of different companies in the software space. And in about 10 years ago, the company I started went through the TechStars program in Boulder. So,
yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, so TechStars is well known. It's an accelerator for exciting companies, and it's a whole big process. Like you got to apply. It's a big deal, very selective, and it's only a small number of companies get in. So it's like a big deal, right?
Yep. And Boulder is a tech incubator. Totally. Lot of stuff.
Great infrastructure, great spot for early stage companies. So there's a lot of people doing really cool, interesting things in Boulder.
Yep.
And so I got into this, we got into this program, me and my team and I, and really exciting. It's a structured, well organized, like tons of support, really great thing. And we're going through the program. It's about 13 weeks. So it's like a 1 quarter program. And about halfway through, one day I'm sitting at home after the day, so it's like an in-person thing, right? So after the day, I'm sitting at home at my kitchen table, and my wife looks over at me and she goes, "Why are you so miserable?"
Ooh.
And I got a little bit defensive, I was like, huh? What? What do you mean? She's like, I see you sitting over there. You got this look on your face, right? You're low energy. You don't look like you're having any fun. You're supposed to be at the pinnacle of your career because you just started this cool company. You got into this program. You're doing all these interesting things. All these people are rooting for you. Essentially what she was asking is, what's the matter?
Yeah.
Like, what's the matter with you? And after I got over my initial defensive-ness, Alex, I was like, there is something here. Like, what's going on? What is happening? And what I realized was I was spending all my time in this program like looking around and comparing myself to others. Oh, these people are farther along. Oh, whatever. This guy raised more money. Oh, this guy got a cooler technology or a better pitch deck or whatever it is. And I was like in this like spiral of like catching myself and comparing myself to other people. And what I realized was I had this like full-on imposter syndrome going on. Right? So imposter syndrome, something that a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of founders, a lot of business owners are very familiar with, is this general feeling that I snuck into the party.
Yeah.
Right? Like somehow I don't belong here. And it's just a matter of time before they figure me out. Yep. They find out that I don't really belong here, that I'm not as smart and as talented and as creative or whatever as everybody else.
Yep.
And so I was like full on in this despair loop around that stuff. And the reason I'm sharing that is that was kind of the wake up call for me to realize, wow, I'm spending a lot of time just ruminating on stuff that is actually not moving me forward, is not moving my business forward or anything. Yeah. And I was able to identify it. I wasn't able to solve it right away, but I was able to identify it, right? Yep. And over the course of several years since then, I've been in a position to mentor other entrepreneurs, so other people who are coming up and doing interesting things. And so I've met with tons and tons and tons of them over the years. And this is another interesting point is so many people come to a mentor meeting and they think they want to talk about pricing, or they want to talk about how to go to market, or how to do better marketing, or how to get more sales, or how to hire people, or whatever it is. And once I start chatting with them, what I realize is almost 100% simply want to know, when am I going to start feeling better in here on the inside? And so to your question of like, what was going on there, I just realized there was a lot of things that were getting in my way, most of them self-imposed. I wanted to be able to say, oh, it's the market's fault, or the customer's fault, or this thing or that thing, except when I held up a mirror and was able to say, hey, there's stuff here where I'm holding myself back.
It's so funny. I learned this in watching football, and it really, really translates, because then I started to see this pattern. It was college football. I'm an NDSU guy, North Dakota State, and they win a bunch of games, right? And the games that they lose, or if like Vikings, maybe Broncos fans have this too, because those teams lose more. Except
lately, yeah.
Yeah. Vikings did all right. Is their self-imposed losses. And it makes sense, like structurally too, and I'll relate this. A lot of times you'll see interceptions in the fourth quarter, and it's because you're airing it out because you need to get back, right? But it's like, okay, that was the interception, or the punt that just doesn't go well, or whatever it is. You dropping the ball, fumbling. Most of it comes from the inside, and I think that then relates to this imposter syndrome. So exploring that, when you had it, and maybe this will then relate to other people, was it imposter syndrome in the sense of, I'm doing a tech thing and there's coders better than me? Or was it, oh, I'm leading this and obviously there's better business people than me. I haven't been a CEO of a big business. Why am I like, which route was it? Or something totally different, obviously.
No. So imposter syndrome hits all sorts of people in all sorts of ways. And the interesting thing about imposter syndrome is it's simply a story that we have absorbed about ourselves. So it almost never stands up to daylight. So when you pick up on some story that you're telling yourself, like, in my case, it was like, oh, I'm not a good enough CEO because I haven't raised millions of dollars. Right? Or I'm not a good CEO because I don't have people lining up to buy my thing yet because we're still early stage, or whatever. My thing isn't sexy enough. There's not enough sizzle in the steak, type of idea. And so I was then looking around saying, well, that guy's got more sizzle than me. That guy's got more sizzle than me, type of thing. Now, in reality, is that true? Not necessarily. It doesn't mean there isn't something I'd like to fix or some tweak I'd like to make.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's a story that I'm telling myself that I've told myself so many times that it's got a very deep groove in my brain.
Yep.
Right? And it could be something that's been with me my entire life. And this is just an instance of it kind of bubbling over. So when I say imposter syndrome doesn't survive sunlight, what I mean is simply naming it and being like, wow, I'm having this feeling right now that I'm not a good CEO because I haven't raised $1 million or whatever. Mm-hmm. You say it out loud, or you say it to a friend or a confidant or what have you. All of a sudden you realize, oh, that's just some old program talking, and I'm fully resourced to be able to go figure out whatever's in front of me.
Yep.
We love to hold on to these stories that we've had for a long time. We love to think that whatever happened to us in the past is still happening to us in the present, and it's going to happen to us in the future. And we can interrupt this stuff consciously.
Yep.
And imposter syndrome is a perfect example.
Do you think, and if this question doesn't make sense, maybe I'll try to reframe it, but I love business books. A whole bunch of different books, history books, war books. Okay. But one thing that I found a pattern with business books or mainly books from academics is they'll say like the 5 steps or the 8 ingredients to X.
Yeah.
And I understand why they do this. And then they'll say like, oh, IBM does this great, and this is one of the ingredients. Google does this great, and this is one of the ingredients. Fox News does this great, and this is one of the ingredients, like whatever it is. And you go, okay, does IBM or Google, or it doesn't matter the company, whatever the new company, has any of them done all of them? Mm-hmm. Because that's what you're telling me to do. And when and I relate this imposter syndrome because here's the example. You're sitting in there with Techstars.
Yeah.
There's, who knows, 10, 20 people, something like that?
Yeah, like
group.
12, a dozen companies. Yeah.
Yep. Well, that person is doing that one thing better. That person's doing that one thing better. That person's doing that one thing better. That person's doing that one thing better. And then is part of it then, you can name it, but then, oh, I don't have to be the best at that because that's not my thing right now, right? Because you can always find examples.
Always
Find examples.
You can always. I mean,
that person's taller, but that person's buffer. We can keep going.
There is a reason that they call comparison the thief of joy, and it's because we can always find something to compare about someone, and it really doesn't serve us. The only comparison that matters is your comparison to you yesterday. Am I better today than I was yesterday? Am I doing something that's helping to move me forward? Am I more resourced? Do I have more clarity? Am I moving in the right direction? Am I somehow better off than I was yesterday or last week or last month? That's the comparison that matters. Yep. Yet we like to trick ourselves into thinking that it's all about looking outside, looking into other people.
How does someone, let's just say, take that advice and run with it, but then put guide rails on, hey, I could run, at that wall, and I don't know it's a wall, but I'm getting better and better at pushing against that wall, but it's a concrete wall, and no matter what, this is the analogy. Like, I'm never going to be able to push over a concrete wall.
Sure.
I'm just not going to. Does that come from outside perspectives and a pivot? Does that come from, have you encountered that kind of struggle too?
Well, let me share some thoughts and ideas on how we can think about this.
Yep.
The first is, one of the biggest issues that a business owner or an entrepreneur is going to face, and I know a lot of the folks who are listening to this, listening to the podcast, fall into that category, is we internalize things and we keep them to ourselves. And one of the best ways that we can start to overcome that is by being in a community with other trusted people, where we can share things like, hey, I had this crazy idea that I wasn't as good as such and such at whatever it is. And we can start to get those ideas reflected back to us and challenged. And that's a great way to be around people you know and like and trust, and say, hey, here are stories that I'm telling myself. They may or may not be true. I want to share them with the group so you can give me some perspective. You can tell me what you think about them. Mm-hmm. So that's the first, right, is taking the time. And a lot of entrepreneurs do not do this. They don't take the time to build a tribe or to be in a community or to spend time with people who uniquely understand what they're going through. So that's part of what we do at Conscious Entrepreneur is we have this kind of tribe and discussion. The other thing I want to share is, when it comes to, you're saying, how do I know this is a wall and I blast through it? We've got to pick what we're good at and where we want to spend our time and energy. And there's really, really good frames for how to think about that. So the wrong frame to how to think about this is, I'm going to go out there and I know that I'm not good at these three things, so I'm just going to try to get a little bit better at lots of things. Right, so I sort of fill in the gaps everywhere I go. If I think of myself as like, what am I good at? What am I less good at? The wrong way to approach it is, I'm going to try to just get even at lots of things. I'm going to kind of be normal. That's a recipe for frustration, because you're never going to be as good as others. You're going to get, people are going to move faster than you. You're not going to make the progress that you want. You're not going to feel fulfilled. On the other hand, you can do something like tap into what's either been called things like your unique ability or your zone of genius. And you can say, I'm going to find what those are, and I'm going to double down on the things that are uniquely special to me, that I'm personally the only person in the world who is this equipped to be able to develop the skill or to do this thing. So, for example, Dan Sullivan, he's an author. He calls that unique ability. He wrote a book called 10x is easier than 2x with Ben Hardy. So that's a fantastic read for anyone. There's another person named Dr. Gay Hendricks. He calls it Zone of Genius. And that's from his book, The Big Leap. And so both the idea here still is, what is the one thing that you are like super recognized for, that you are better than anyone else in the world, and that you can do, and it doesn't feel like work, and it gives you energy, and it makes you excited, and you almost don't care whether you get paid or not for doing it. Like, can you find that thing? And as an entrepreneur or as a business owner, when you find that thing, then you realize, oh, that's what I need to do. That's my calling. And with that, you can get through the wall. You can break through the walls.
Yep.
There's no more wall.
Yep. And I also think too, like I've received pushback and even had this own pushback, especially when I was in college, because I had my own area of what it wasn't genius at that point, still not, but expertise that I had this vision. And I think some people think when I open it up to criticism or advice, now I'm subject to that. And it's going to be reins hold me back, or Gulliver's Travels, ropes, pinning me down. But what I've learned through a variety of different people, I'll use one example. We have a client, he's Boulder, he's a tech guy, tech genius, all that other stuff. He does some stuff where he doesn't listen to our advice, and that's totally fine. He's even said like, yeah, I should have listened to your advice on that. But remember who he is and what he does. And he'll go down a path and break through a wall and go farther than other people. But what he'll do and what other people will do is that they still get a bunch of feedback. They'll read books, read articles, ask people, blah, 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 and then still go the hard route, the crazy route, right? I mean, extreme example, like Elon Musk will still research, ask questions, whatever, and he'll still go his own way. But now he knows like, okay, probably only this is possible. Let's tweak this, whatever it is. So what I'm getting at, and maybe you can echo this or detract from it if you want, is that getting input from those other people isn't those ropes. It's just more information for you that you can make your call on.
Yeah, it's just, you're simply talking about the process of getting feedback. Mm-hmm. And so you get feedback, and then you still got to make your own decision. Now, some people...
and I'll tell you why there's this pushback, too, in the community, too. Well, Steve Jobs said other opinion, they don't know what they want, they're stupid, right? But his zone of genius was design, and he listened to Johnny Ives and some other people, and and then had his own thing. So that's what I'm contrasting it against.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not to say that if you're operating in your zone of genius or you're operating based on your unique ability that you're always right 100% of the time, or that you have no headwinds or no friction along the way.
Yeah.
Right? That's not the point. The point is, how do you want to feel energized? How do you want to feel confident? How do you want to feel like you're tapping into something bigger than yourself? That's a great way to do it. And so the mistake is to assume, because I'm doing this, I'm going to be right all the time. I'm like the dictator of this theme,
Yep.
right? No, it's more of an internal discussion. Where do I feel happy, fulfilled, energized, like really positive in the work that I'm doing? That's kind of what we want to tap into.
Where do you see people holding themselves back in which area? Is it just in the general sense of psychology, or is it because in business, there's basically divisions, right? One big one is like the product, right? One of it is the marketing, and marketing is connections and stuff like that. So do you find people are just, hey, maybe they got a great idea, but all they're doing is tinkering with that idea and they're not sharing it with the world, right? Or, hey, they're great marketers, but like their product is crazy. Or, man, they can't do math and they don't realize that you need at least a little math to make a business work. Or bad people like, and maybe you just pick out a story or two of a roadblock that someone had.
Well, I'll tell you my general philosophy here, and this is true particularly for those of us who have started and are running our own companies.
Yep.
I believe that building a business is a spiritual journey, and what I mean by that is building a business is ultimately a journey of self-discovery. All the things that you want to know about yourself, you are going to learn as you build a business,
and stuff you don't want to learn about yourself.
And stuff you don't want to learn. All the things that you suppressed as a child, you are going to come back up when you're building a company. All your limiting beliefs are going to appear as you are executing a company. And so, your question was like, where does this stuff manifest? Like, how does it appear? What does it look like? A very common one is, I might have a limiting belief that I'm not smart enough, or I'm not good enough, or I don't belong, or that I'm not worthy. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of people have something like that. Now, is it current and useful as an adult to have that belief? No, right, for the most part. But it's stuck with us. It's been stuck with us since we were 5 years old or whatever. Now, what does that mean? Well, one of the ways that manifests is when I'm building my company, I'm then not so confident on pricing, right? Or so, I'll just discount for the first few jobs. I'll give a discount, but kind of thing, because I'm not confident in what I'm doing. I'm not confident in the reception I'm going to get from the market because I have this crazy old belief that I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy or what have you.
That compounds then, because then if you give that discount, all of a sudden you're 4 months down the road, you're running out of runway, and you're like, I need to get someone else. How I get them is by giving discounts.
By giving a discount. And the further story is, I'm obviously not a good entrepreneur either because I'm running out of money.
Yeah.
Right. So all these things come together. Therefore, if we agree that building a business is a spiritual journey,
Yep.
then one of the best things that any of us can do as entrepreneurs is to work on ourselves. Because guess what? If I build my own confidence, if I build my own self-esteem, if I get rid of my imposter syndrome, if I look after myself physically, for example, and I feel
Yep.
good, right? And I feel energized, that's going to resonate with people around me. All of a sudden, I'm going to be more confident in my price. I'm going to be more excited on a sales call. I'm going to be, more excited when I'm doing something in marketing, and people are going to feel that, right? And they're going to react in a different way.
Yep. I love that. Is there, man, you hit on so much else, limiting yourself,
Yeah.
struggle with mindset,
Mm-hmm.
imposter syndrome. Maybe the only one we didn't hit is burnout.
Yeah. So burnout's something that a lot of people face in their life, and almost no one faces it as acutely as a business owner or as an entrepreneur. Now, there are a lot of misconceptions around burnout. Okay, the primary misconception around burnout is, oh, you're tired, just go spend a week in Florida, go on the beach, and then you'll get better, right? You'll feel better. That's way too surface level, and that's not at all what's going on. So many people actually describe burnout as a spiritual problem. Spiritual problem meaning I feel burned out when my energy is going toward things that I actually don't care about.
Okay.
So
That's one of the root reasons for burnout.
Correct.
Yeah.
So people will make the incorrect assumption that burnout is simply because you work too hard, you've been burning the candle at both ends, you need to take a break. That, of course, can happen, and you do need to take a break, but that's not necessarily what burnout is. Burnout is more, I'm doing this work, and it's not aligned with what I care about, it's not aligned with my values, or I don't feel like I'm good at it, or I feel like I'm pushing a rock up a hill, and I don't feel like it's a good use of my time, energy, and talents.
Yep.
Right? That is a precursor to burnout. And then when burnout hits, burnout has three manifestations. Okay, there's three signs of burnout. The first one is physical exhaustion. So like we were just saying, I'm tired, I can't stay awake, or I just can't focus, and I'm tired exhausted all the time. So that's number one. And that one's pretty easy to see in people.
Yep.
The second one is what they call cynicism or depersonalization. What that means is I'm suddenly detached from the problem in front of me. I care less, right? Like I'm distant from whatever's going on. So so something that I used to care about, all of a sudden I'm now detached from. I view it more cynically. I view it more as like something that like through a haze, right?
Yep.
And so like I know I should care about this, but I actually don't care about this right now.
Yep.
And then the third is lack of professional effectiveness, which means I'm no longer as good at my job as I used to be.
I'll give you one problem, and many architects might realize this. And I wonder how you would approach it. Not saying that there's a elixir,
Sure.
a snake oils, potion we can drink and solve it. So architects, but I'm sure a lot of people get this in different ways. Architects love to design, build. Like you literally get to manifest your thoughts, and then inhabit
Super
them.
creative endeavor.
Yep. And then they understand. Okay, we got to draw it. Tedious. There's some code issues. And then all of a sudden you deal with the government and the city, and they will give you comments that are this stupid. You have a plan. I'm not kidding. This has happened 1,000 times. You have to have fire lock boxes so firemen can come in and they don't break down your building every time there's a false alarm, right? And you'll put it here. And then they will write over that. Please indicate where the fire lock box is. And you'll be like, it's right over where you put it. And like the cynicism, the second and the third two of like, I'm not even being effective now. Like, this is crazy. This is the fifth round of comments and they make no sense whatsoever. So a person experiencing that and then, getting short, temper and all that. But also too, it's like, well, that architect that designed it, that also kind of drew it, knows best how to get to those comments to answer them as well. So there's this, and you can tell me if I'm wrong too. I think, I love my job. I maybe deal with that a little bit too. But let's say there was something else that I really liked. I can't even imagine right now, but something else. I'm sure even in the tech industry, there's some sort of compliance code thing that sucks.
Yeah.
I am sure if you're a CEO going to talk to investors and of a public company and answering questions that you feel are super dumb is annoying. I'm sure being politically correct on TV and having to say something not offensive when you're like, can I just tell them that this is the way the world works? I'm sure they're just like after work, they're like, oh God,
Well, so when you think about that, when you think about what you're describing there, so some of it is just there's going to be a lot of things over the course of your day or week or month that are gonna wear you down a little bit.
Yep.
But if you do it too often, and if you're too often stuck in these things that are outside your zone of genius, it's going to affect you, and that can lead to burnout.
Yeah.
If you want to really 10x your business, so if you want to get real growth, then what you need to do is you need to say, I'm just going to focus on the things that are most important for me. I'm going to focus on the small number of things that really move the needle. I'm going to only do the work that lights me up. And anything that doesn't, besides that, I'm going to find other people to do it for. Mm-hmm. So for example, what you were just saying, you can find other people to help you with the application process, with the review process, with the drawing, et cetera, to unlock your genius if your genius is the design phase of a project, for example, versus the implementation phase or the regulatory phase or what have you.
Are you suggesting that there's someone out there
who likes to do that stuff?
Yes. Who likes to respond to code questions, city code questions?
I think that there are people who probably can do it better than you, who would do it for a wage that you would deem satisfactory, meaning you could say, hey, I'm willing to pay up to X per hour or per project to do this. I think there are other people who do that. And you would be amazed to find that there are people who actually like the nuance and the intricacies of this process.
You know what's so funny? I said that as a challenge, but I have met, and no, it's so funny, they're on the government side. I mean, for them to even make some of these comments are so, like, they're digging in the code out of nowhere. Like, these codes are 500 pages long, right? And they're finding some nuanced thing that isn't indicated the way that they like. So I'm sure there's someone on the opposite side like, oh, they think they can get me with this.
Yeah, they might be having fun in it too.
Yeah, like, there's no way they're going to get me on this. Please see General Note 5, So interesting. So this was a great conversation. I love the overarching thing. If you have anything to leave our audience with, please do, and then where to reach out to you if they want to.
Yeah, I would just reinforce the point that I made earlier, which is I know how tough it is to build a business. I've built several. I've been a part of several, and I've seen lots of people build companies, and I know it's difficult. And it's really important to have a tribe, to find your people, to be around people that you can talk to and know and trust. And that's what we're building at Conscious Entrepreneurs. So if this got anyone's attention and they think, hey, I want to learn more, I want to go a little bit deeper, check out the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit. It's happening in Boulder in May, May 28th and 29th. The website's consciousentrepreneur.us. Tons of great stuff there, tons of resources. It's in Boulder, but we attract people from around the country to this event.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex.
All right, man. Thank you.